Tonight, American trade policy has been upended in a way that few could have anticipated. The nation is holding its breath as the implications of this seismic shift begin to unfold. The Supreme Court has struck down the Trump-era tariffs, sending shockwaves through Washington and beyond. This decision has not only caught the attention of political leaders, but also of economists and international trade experts who are now re-evaluating their strategies. The economic landscape has shifted in an instant, leaving lawmakers, businesses, and citizens scrambling to grasp the implications. Traders on Wall Street are reacting with a mix of anxiety and anticipation, while business leaders are urgently meeting to discuss the potential impacts on their operations. For years, these tariffs, justified under a 1962 trade law, were fiercely debated. They were hailed by some as a necessary protection for American industry, while others condemned them as reckless protectionism that could isolate the U.S. from global markets. The debate has been intense, with strong opinions on both sides. Now, the highest court has delivered a decisive verdict, one that will be analyzed and discussed for years to come. This ruling is a landmark decision that will likely be studied in law schools and political science courses across the country. The ruling isn't just about economics. It redefines the boundaries of presidential power and congressional authority. It raises questions about the balance of power in the U.S. government and the role of the judiciary in shaping policy. Phones are ringing off the hook in newsrooms and on trading floors as the fallout begins. Journalists are racing to cover every angle of this story, while financial analysts are trying to predict the market's next move. Political battle lines are being redrawn in real time. The decision has sparked a new wave of debates and discussions, with politicians and pundits weighing in on the potential consequences for the upcoming elections. This is more than a story about tariffs. It's about power, jobs, and America's role in a global economy. The decision could have far-reaching effects on international trade agreements and the U.S. position on the world stage. The consequences will echo for years, affecting everything from manufacturing jobs to international relations. As the dust settles, the nation will have to navigate this new economic reality. We're here to break down what this historic decision means for you. Stay with us as we continue to provide in-depth analysis and expert opinions on this unfolding story. Your understanding of these events is crucial as we move forward into this new chapter of American history. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court dismantled the legal foundation of the Trump tariffs. The justices ruled the executive branch overstepped, using Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act far beyond its intent. Effective immediately, importers are freed from steep tariffs on steel, aluminum, and more. The court reasserted Congress's authority over trade, ending the era of unilateral tariff power by the White House. Future presidents now face strict legal barriers to using national security as a pretext for broad economic protectionism. The majority opinion stressed that unchecked executive power threatens the balance of democracy. This ruling sets a new, much stricter precedent for trade policy. The reaction was immediate and deeply divided. Business groups and free trade advocates celebrated, calling it a win for consumers and global relationships. Union leaders and industrial state politicians condemned the decision, warning of job losses and accusing the court of abandoning American workers. Former President Trump decried the ruling as a betrayal, while his allies vowed to fight back in Congress. The current administration struck a cautious tone, caught between free trade ideals and concern for manufacturing jobs. The stage is set for a fierce new political battle over America's trade future. The debate over protectionism versus globalism is only intensifying. Section 232 was born in the Cold War, meant to protect industries vital to national defense, not to wage broad economic battles. For decades, it was rarely used, reserved for true emergencies. The Trump administration expanded its meaning, arguing that economic health itself was national security. This led to sweeping tariffs on allies and sparked a wave of legal challenges. Businesses argued the law's definition of national security was limitless, giving the president unchecked power to tax. The Supreme Court was asked, can a president define national security at will, or are there limits? Today, the court drew a clear line. The tariff debate split the nation. Protectionists saw tariffs as a lifeline for American industry, promising jobs and security. They argued that relying on foreign steel and aluminum was a strategic weakness. Free traders, including manufacturers and small businesses, saw the tariffs as a costly disaster. They faced higher prices, lost competitiveness, and retaliatory tariffs abroad. For them, tariffs were a tax on Americans, not foreign adversaries. The economic pain was real. Factories struggled and global trade partners hit back. Both sides claimed to defend American interests, but their visions for the country's future could not have been more different. The Supreme Court's decision has now tipped the scales. The Supreme Court focused on the Constitution, not the economics. The majority ruled that Congress, not the President, holds the power to tax and regulate trade. Allowing the executive to define national security without limits would erase Congress's authority. The dissent warned this ties the president's hands in a dangerous world, but the majority insisted only direct, specific threats justify unilateral action. The ruling restores Congress's role in economic policy. The separation of powers is reaffirmed. The decision instantly reshapes America's economic map, sending shockwaves through every corner of the nation. Overnight, the landscape of winners and losers is being redrawn, and the effects are felt far beyond boardrooms and factory floors. Manufacturers and construction firms, major consumers of steel and aluminum, are immediate winners. They anticipate lower material costs, which could boost their profits, allow for expansion, and even create new jobs. For these industries, the decision is a green light to invest, hire, and innovate, potentially making American-made products more competitive both at home and abroad. Farmers, who have long suffered from retaliatory tariffs that limited their exports, now see a glimmer of hope. With barriers coming down, they look forward to renewed access to global markets, higher demand for their crops, and the possibility of recovering lost income. For rural communities, this could mean a much-needed economic boost. But for domestic steel and aluminum producers, the outlook is far less certain. They now face a surge of foreign competition, putting pressure on prices and profits. Factory managers worry about how to keep their operations afloat in a suddenly more challenging environment. Workers in these industries are anxious. The fear of layoffs and plant closures looms large, threatening their livelihoods and the stability of entire towns that depend on these jobs. The sense of security that tariffs once provided has vanished almost overnight. For many, the future feels uncertain and precarious. Communities that once celebrated protectionist policies now feel exposed and vulnerable. The mood has shifted from optimism to anxiety as residents wonder what the coming months will bring. The ruling highlights the complex trade-offs of economic policy. What helps one sector can hurt another. Lawmakers and experts debate the best path forward, knowing that every decision creates both opportunities and risks. Across the country, America's economic fortunes are being redrawn in real time. The impact is uneven, with some regions poised for growth while others brace for hardship. The winners and losers are shifting overnight, and the balance of economic power is in flux. For many, the news brings hope. For others, it brings fear and uncertainty. The stakes for workers, businesses, and entire regions are enormous. Every job, every business decision, and every community is touched by this sweeping change. The fallout is just beginning, and the true impact will unfold in the months and years ahead as America adapts to a new economic reality. Global markets cheered the ruling. Stocks surged, commodity prices fell, and the dollar strengthened. Investors responded with optimism, interpreting the decision as a sign of renewed stability and predictability in international trade. The trading floors buzzed with excitement as analysts predicted a period of growth and reduced volatility. For many, this was a welcome relief after months of uncertainty and fluctuating prices. America's allies, long frustrated by the tariffs, welcomed the decision as a return to cooperation. Leaders from Europe, Canada, and Asia issued statements praising the move, emphasizing the importance of working together to solve global challenges. The mood at international summits shifted, with diplomats expressing hope for more constructive dialogue and fewer trade disputes in the future. Retaliatory measures are expected to be lifted, easing tensions with Canada, Europe, and others. Borders that had been slowed by tariffs and inspections began to reopen, and trade officials on all sides signaled a willingness to rebuild trust. The flow of goods and services is set to increase, benefiting businesses and consumers alike. China's response was cautious, noting that deeper disputes remain unresolved. While Chinese officials acknowledged the positive step, they reminded the world that significant disagreements over technology, intellectual property, and market access still persist. The path to full reconciliation, they warned, would require ongoing negotiation and compromise. The U.S. can no longer wield tariffs as a unilateral threat. Diplomacy and coalition building are back at the forefront. International forums like the G20 and WTO are regaining relevance, as countries recognize the need for collective solutions to complex economic issues. The era of go-it-alone strategies appears to be giving way to renewed multilateralism. Some see this as a loss of leverage, others as a return to stability. Economists and business leaders are divided. While some argue that America's bargaining power is diminished, others believe that predictable rules and open dialogue will foster long-term prosperity. The debate continues on talk shows and in boardrooms across the globe. America's approach to global trade is fundamentally shifting. Policymakers are rethinking strategies, focusing more on building alliances and less on confrontation. Factories and ports across the country are adjusting to the new reality, preparing for increased exports and imports as barriers fall. The world is watching to see if this marks a lasting change. Newsrooms are abuzz with analysis, and citizens everywhere are eager to see if this new era of cooperation will endure or if old tensions will resurface. The stakes are high and the outcome remains uncertain. The era of economic brinkmanship may be ending. As leaders shake hands and agreements are signed, there is cautious optimism that a more stable and collaborative global economy is on the horizon. Only time will tell if this turning point leads to lasting peace and prosperity in international trade. The Supreme Court's ruling hands the trade debate back to Congress. Lawmakers must now decide whether to grant new tariff powers or forge a different path. The stakes are high. Uncertainty clouds investment and hiring decisions nationwide. America's global leadership is at a crossroads. Will it rebuild alliances or retreat behind economic walls? The world is watching for signs of stability or renewed volatility. This is about more than steel or aluminum. It's about the nation's identity. Will America lead through partnership or protectionism? The Supreme Court has spoken. Now the future is in Congress's hands. The choices made now will define America's economic destiny. The next chapter begins.